All right, today we're going to talk about the triad of destruction and also discuss the triad of success. We're going to break up time into 3 increments. Really simple stuff. The past, the present, and the future. You've heard this before, I know you have. Basically, people talk about if you have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, you're pissing all over today. That's been said a million times before. So resentments, angers, and fears hold people back from reaching their full potential, okay? Acceptance, love, and faith give you strength. We'll cover that in a second. Basically what happens is that we all have some resentments, and if you're in recovery or a person wants to develop themselves spiritually, you got to understand that resentments are a luxury that you do not have as a spiritually developed person, okay? Lots of us had bad childhoods, okay? I'm a therapist. I'm going to listen to your bad childhood. I'm going to validate your experience. I get it. It was terrible. It was bad. But here's the bottom line. These resentments and these childhoods do not define you. They have refined you. They've made you better, stronger, wiser, more aware. Okay? There's a gift to be had from this experience. That's why the present is referred to as the present, because it is a gift. So going back in childhood, we talk about, well, my childhood was really bad, Raj. Like, how fucking bad? Like you were on the streets begging for food bad, like in India? Like you live on less than $1 a day, like 1 billion people bad? Like you're starving in Africa bad? Or how about this? Your dad was a child pornographer who produced child pornography, directed and starred in child pornography, and decided that you, as a young woman, were his best co-star. And he made child pornography with you. Was it that fucked up as a childhood? Remember, we look at things through our American lens. Don't look at it through the world lens, how bad things really, really are. You know, if you're on the streets, you know, living under a tin roof, if you're living in Haiti and got nothing to eat, that's a really bad fucking childhood. But if your childhood was based upon mistreatment, neglect, and abandonment, yeah, that's bad. But putting it in context, it should not hold you back from reaching your full potential. You have to move beyond it. Talking about, you know, your current condition, anger. Anger is another weakness, okay? Anger makes people make some of the worst decisions possible. And I can prove this point. There was a guy who was driving down the road and someone cut him off on the road. He got so angry, he shot into the car and killed a kid in the back seat in a car seat, okay? And so when they pulled dude over, like, dude, what's wrong with you? What's your major fucking malfunction? And he's like, well, they cut me off on the road. So they thought he must be on fucking drugs. Let's draw his blood and do a toxicology. And they draw his blood. There's nothing in his blood at all whatsoever. This guy killed somebody under the influence of anger. That's massively fucked up. But anger doesn't have to be bad. Anger is a secondary emotion. If you see your girl flirting with somebody else or dancing with somebody else, you will feel jealousy first, then you'll feel anger. But anger, if it's sublimated, okay, if you turn lemons into lemonade, it can be used for good. Martin Luther King Jr. lived in the South, and they said, hey, Mr. N-word, you can't vote. And Martin Luther King Jr. kind of said, well, that's not really nice, because you guys have this thing in your document that says all men are created equal. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't apply to you. And we got some Jim Crow laws too. But he's like, that's not really nice, and so I'm going to lead these peaceful protests to show you that you're wrong. And they're like, okay, here's the deal. We're going to blow up your fucking house. And they dynamited his house. And Martin Luther King Jr. said, well, you know, you guys, you try to kill me and my family in my house with the dynamite, and that really wasn't very nice. And so I'm going to continue this protest and show you that love is the way, and we're going to actually change the world. And he fucking did. And that's the point. Anger doesn't have to be bad, but anger is a weakness. Under the influence of anger, you can make horrible decisions. And prisons are filled with people who made one bad decision in a split of the moment under the influence of anger and regret to this very day. Now, moving into the future tense, the idea behind fear, right? Fear is fuck everything and run. That's an acronym. Or basically false evidence appearing real. That's another acronym. Fear does not allow you to reach your full potential. Fear is a luxury. For a person that's in recovery, a person that's faith, a person that's trying to develop themselves spiritually, they don't have the fucking luxury of fear. Okay, it doesn't make anything better at all whatsoever. So when we talk about fear, the idea is that you got to move away from that. Okay, so going back in time, so we got the resentments, we got the angers, and we got the fears. Now, how do you deal with resentments? Okay, how do you break them down as a spiritual warrior? You basically use what's called acceptance. Acceptance and resolution. I'm going to make a wrong thing right, okay? But it's complicated. You know, one of my clients, you know, her dad was a complete piece of shit. We'll call her dad. Don't call her sperm donor, okay? She had a sperm donor, and from ages 9 to 13, her mother and him were serious crackheads, and they prostituted their daughter for more crack. They gave her to dealers and said, hey, drug dealer, enjoy my daughter and give me some more fucking crack. Ages 9 to 13, that's what happened to her. Then she goes to Children's Village for a couple years. So when she gets out, you know, her father convinces her under some kind of ruse to meet him at a crack house to kind of save his ass. And when she gets there, she realizes he's trying to pimp and pander her. And she says, when he told me what he wanted me to do in the crack house, I broke into tears. And I go, well, Mary, then what'd you do after that? She goes, I broke his fucking jaw. And I go, you're fucking awesome, because when someone uses a jaw for some bullshit, that jaw needs to be fucking broken so it can be wired shut for 6 months so the person can look back at their bad decision making and their bad words. So fast forward, now Mary's father's doing 20 years in prison. He's basically fucking done. And she gets a letter from the prison pastor and from her father that says, you know, he is now a Christian. He's reborn in Christ, and he's asking you to forgive him for what he did. So Mary comes into my office and she's crying. She's like, what do I do? You know, I got baptized last year. I want to be a good Christian. I should forgive him for what he did. And I go, fuck no. I go, do you want to forgive him? And she goes, no. I go, why do you want to give him the joy of being forgiven? Okay, that's not your fucking job. That's for baby Jesus to deal with and for big size Jesus to deal with. Basically, he has to go see his maker and say, hey, God, you know all the shit I did? Can I be forgiven? That's not your fucking responsibility. So you don't have to forgive him for anything, especially when it's some fucking crazy ass bullshit. And basically, you aren't responsible for making him feel better about himself. And in fact, forgiveness is your choice, not his choice. And you can still say, I'm going to basically deal with it. I'm going to not let it define me. I'm going to basically accept that it happened. But I'm going to use the term resolution. I'm going to make that wrong thing right. I'm not going to let him ruin my joy and happiness. I'm not going to let him make me feel bad about not forgiving him. And she felt a lot better. When we talk about anger, we realize the idea behind anger. And so we talk about anger holds people back, right? So how do you deal with anger to improve yourself? You deal with anger through love and gratitude. Those are strength tools for a spiritual warrior. When you are grateful for your fucking cheeseburger, when you're grateful for your house, you're grateful for your family, when you're grateful for your warm bed, okay, you begin to think in terms of gratitude. And gratitude and appreciation make you stronger. They make you make better decisions, and they bring out the best in you, okay? So the idea to deal with anger when you feel it in the moment, focus on gratitude, focus on appreciation, and suppress the anger. The final part of the story is back to fear. How do we deal with fear as spiritual people, as spiritual warriors, and as spiritual gangsters? You deal with fear through faith, okay? Faith is the tool. You have to believe, right? So the idea is first you conceive your future, then you believe in your future, then you can achieve your future. It has to go that way. You can't do it until you believe it, and fear will stop you from believing it. You must believe in yourself, and you must push the fear down and say, I have faith. I am unstoppable. This will work out. This too shall pass. I have strength. When you recognize that fear can't control you, remember, the most valuable real estate that you own is between your two ears. You will never possess any more valuable property in your entire life. Your mind is your most important and most basically sensitive part of your real estate in this spiritual world. And so do not allow resentments, angers, and fears to take free rent up in your brain. That's bullshit. I remember a person that was in recovery and they were posting things on Facebook and someone wanted to be a troll and be really, really mean. They began taking their inventory and saying, well, you did this and you did that and you did this and you treated this person the wrong way and you used drugs. And the person goes, man, that's like breaking into my old house. You know, when you try bringing up those things, you know, try to take my inventory. I don't live there anymore. You've broken into a house. I don't live there anymore. I live over here. This is where I'm at. I'm in the future. This is me today. You're breaking into a house and stealing things and talking about things that aren't part of what I own or what I'm part of. Those don't belong to me anymore. I am this person today. then that's powerful. So when we talk about moving forward with faith, the idea here is that any journey that's being driven by fear never results in anything glorious. And that's powerful. Any journey that's driven by fear shall never result in anything glorious. Hope this was helpful. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you. God bless, and fortune favors the bold.